Okay. Okay. Yes, okay. Welcome to the Team GPT podcast. My name is Syed Hader with my friends as always, Ryan and Brian. How you guys doing? Good. Special guest today, owner of 110% clothing, a shirt I find fantastic. I love the shirt. Great shirt.
Appreciate
I
it.
don't wear it to the
I didn't
gym,
even
but
notice that. What a plug on his end. I didn't even notice that.
He's working it.
I am a professional, all right? Look at the background. Anyway, Kevin, it's great to have you on. What's going on? Tell us what's going on.
First of all, thank you for having me. I always love having conversations like this, and it's good timing. I just went to one of Ryan's meets for the first time. I'd always heard good things, so it was, it's. I think it's been a good month for powerlifting. With the QTs, everything going on, so I think there's a good amount of stuff to talk about. But everything's good right now. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he said your clothing line, but I know at the meet you probably sell more clothing, but I mean, I think I'm assuming your bread and butter is the supplements.
Online, it's funny because online it's probably 90-10 supplements, and then like you said, the thing about in person, obviously because it's an FDA compliant label, I'm not going to change it a million times. I don't like when I see companies that will change their formula every year. So the shirts are kind of like a cool artistic flair. You can do different stuff. So you see it a lot at meets, but yeah, online it's almost always pre-workout, protein, focus capsules, that kind of stuff. So, but let's be honest, if you go to a meet and you've been prepping for 12 weeks with your favorite pre-workout, and then I show up and you see this guy there, you're not going to buy my product, right? So there has to be like kind of a way to get you to buy something else. And then every time you go to squat in that shirt, you're wearing it. Oh, let me try it, whatever. So it's cool. It's funny because the pre-workout, any flavor I do will sell out in 2 months, but I have shirts that are 2 years old that are sitting in a cardboard box on the third floor of a warehouse. So yeah, it's always a weird thing.
I was just going to ask what the big is pre the biggest supplement, but I'm sure that answered that question right there.
So
it's funny because like I grew up, we didn't take pre when I was growing up in training. Like we just lifted, and like I said, I didn't even drink my first coffee till I was in probably like my mid to late 20s, and now like I don't think anyone works out without caffeine.
It's funny. I'm going to say this because obviously I go against my company, but I think a lot of people overdo it. Sometimes you see a lot of people that are doing I know people that are doing like 900 milligrams of caffeine a day. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? And it's funny, like you said, when I was a kid, I remember first pre-workout, I was like 22 and I could run a marathon on that thing. Now you have kids at like 15 and it's like, they're drinking 3 Monsters. I think it's so accessible at this point that people, and honestly, in my opinion, caffeine is just one part of it. And I think, unfortunately, people will go straight caffeine when there's, my one thing, if I have one legacy, is to talk about, choline donor, theanine, along with caffeine, other components. It's just one piece of the puzzle. But it's crazy, like you said, how I'm 31, how much the landscape has changed the last 10, 15 years. It's crazy.
So that definitely brings up the conversation of you started your own supplement lines, you sell pre-workout. What makes your pre-workout different from just hammering just a bunch of caffeine?
So I started it. My story is I'm again 31. At 24, I was a big Muscle Farm guy. I had cycled through a lot of the popular pre-workouts, and I hated them. I would it would work for one day, and then it would kind of work the next day, and then you were like, by the third or fourth day, it didn't hit. So I started buying bulk supplements, and I would take, I literally had in my home, in my basement at home, I would go before my workout, and I would make like 9 grams of citrulline, betaine, all the things that I wanted, and make my Rolls Royce of a product. And I think the special part is I never thought to make it into a company, right? I did it for myself. It was my product. I used it every day. I loved it. And then over time, I let people try it, and they're like, dude, this is amazing. You should do something with it. And then right before COVID, we made it. I think what makes ours special is that it's a 30 serving blend, especially the flagship product. I think a lot of companies inflate their cost, what they charge for the product. I think for what you're getting, it's very fair. My thing is the 5-to-1 ratio of caffeine to theanine. So for me, almost all of our products have theanine. Theanine is naturally found in black and green tea. And so again, as a guy who was taking these pre-workouts, straight caffeine anhydrous, I would always, have this sharp increase of energy, and then within 20, 30 minutes drop. And because I didn't want to mix caffeine powder, because think about it, you could sneeze and accidentally add too much caffeine, I would drink black tea. And even though I was getting the same amount of caffeine that I was a pre-workout, I had this calmer effect. And I was like, what the hell? I had to almost get my test checked. I was like, am I like, is something going on? And I realized that theanine has a really cool component where, you see data coming out now about it, but a lot of the studies are 1-to-1. So, 250, 250. I love the 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 3-to-1, because you get the positive of the caffeine, you get the energy, but you don't crash. I never had a pre-workout before 110 where I could take it in the morning and go throughout the rest of my day and, maybe have a coffee or whatever and be good. And it's been cool because, again, when it's your product, of course you love your product. And I don't care what you are. So it's been really cool to see other people use it at 8 o'clock at night and get home, for work. And like, while powerlifting is a young sport, it's cool seeing guys my age that were like, hey, I got to stop taking pre-workout. And now they can start using that, 110. So I think what makes our special is that theanine and then just the non-stimulant side. I think a lot of companies do a ton of caffeine and there's very little of everything else. You're getting a whole host of others, 500 milligrams of alpha GBC, 9 grams of citrulline malate. You're getting a lot of different stuff in that formula. So again, I try to be very fair with the price, and it kills me for wholesale, but it's I owe it to my customers, and I think it's a good way to get that out there. So
Did you do lots of like messing around with different supplements or different combinations or anything? Because that sounds terrifying to me.
So that was I did it by the science where I would look up like how much citrulline, how much this, how much that. But yeah, that's actually a good point where it's like over those 5 years, it was just beta testing. It was like, hey, what do I like this. All right. And that's the funny thing is I have a formulator now, who's amazing. And it's funny that our best product is one that I came up with, and I'm, I lean to the science, but I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I'm none of those things. So it's funny that the product that people love the most is one that I took 5 years and just made myself, with anecdotal and just personal. Hey, I like this ingredient. I like this ingredient. And it worked out for me too, because I never mixed it with, I never sweetened it. So it would taste like shit, but I would, taste it like. So when we go to make flavors, I know intimately what that flavor tastes like. So I know what to do. Because a lot of companies will release a watermelon and then you drink it. You're like, this doesn't taste like watermelon. This tastes awful. So I think I kind of like, without meaning to do it, I set myself up for success in that sense, because I feel like a lot of companies you see, they sell something, but the owner doesn't know the product. And it's cool to say that on this planet, I've used my product more than anybody else has.
Gotcha.
Guaranteed.
Yep.
And it's just really cool to kind of do that.
Yeah, that's when you say with the caffeine, like I think of that story. There was like, I think it was the trainer somewhere over in Asia a couple years ago that went to add caffeine anhydrous to his post workout or his pre workout, and added, it was like 200 grams instead of milligrams.
Yep.
And he started frothing at the mouth and died on the floor like within 20 minutes.
Yep.
And I used to tell people, I'm like, oh, just buy caffeine anhydrous. It's like cents. You could buy it. It's so cheap. And I was like, you know what? Maybe don't do that, because it's so easy to overdose on it.
Yeah.
And like, you're probably not going to die, but like you literally could die, or like you said, you're out of your mind for a little while, and then you're in bed because you just die, you crash.
Well, that's the thing is like you said, you might not die, but even just like 50 extra milligrams or 100 extra milligrams without anything else in there is going to be a drastic effect increase. So it's weird when you see people making, again, because I did it myself, but you see people just doing these weird concoctions and they swear it works, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? You're gonna hurt yourself. So unfortunately, I think this industry has shifted. The manufacturing side of it has gone insane. It's so much better than it used to be. I mean, let's be honest, when you see people pop, it's overseas. You don't see them really pop here.
Right,
Even PEDs, but when it's like ephedrine or any of these other things that are in there, it's almost never in America. So we've come a long way on that side. But unfortunately, I see it every day. I saw a kid today that was a high school kid who his parents probably for Christmas helped him fund a supplement company. And it's like, I'm happy for you, but you should not be running a supplement company. You should be in timeout. Like, you're 17. Like, you should be driving your first car. Like, not in, it's just a weird thing that you have to navigate. It's one of the only industries where like you really should have a formulator and certain things that you need. And I'm grateful that there is no barrier. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to start it, but there really should be something, because while most supplement companies and manufacturers in America won't house banned ingredients anymore, you can still get your hands on DMAA. You can still get your hands on a lot of those other products. And it's just, I think a lot of consumers will buy something and assume because they can buy it and it has a label on it, it's safe, and that's just not true. Just like any
Right.
recreational drug, how it affects you as an individual could be drastically different than someone else, right? I don't drink because drinking for me, even though I'm Irish, which I'm ashamed of my ancestors, I just never was for me. I would feel like crap. It just never was my thing. And I can respect someone who can have a couple beers and have a good time. It's just everyone is different. And just because something is sold in the store or on the shelf or online doesn't mean that it's necessarily good for you, you know?
Well, I'm 41. So when this stuff started to come out, and like a couple of my buddies, we were in high school and we would start, and it was just starting to come out. We had in a little bit, we used to drink Ripped Fuel, which was an ECA stack.
Yeah.
And we would go, so we'd get out of school, we'd go to the Y, we'd slam a Ripped Fuel, go lift for 2 hours, go play basketball for 2 hours, go swim for 2 hours, then not go to bed because we just took ephedra, caffeine, and aspirin in a pretty big dose at like 16. And we just like were unstoppable. And it was like back then you just went into the gas station. Like, okay, yeah, let me get one of those. And you didn't think twice about it because it's like you said, it was in the gas station. It's right there. It's fine.
Yep.
So you just grab one, boom, drink it, and then you're like, yeah, I haven't slept in 44 hours. I don't know what's going on. And you're like, well, you've had, you're stacking ECA every day. Like, and like, yeah, like, and like you said, because of the like getting popped, like there so many people don't realize like what you can pop for. We used to know a company that I worked with a little bit, fairly local, but they had one pre-workout that had Shisranadol in it, and it would pop for speed. And like everyone would take it, and they'd be scratching their ears. They're like, "I love this shit. I don't know what's going on. It's amazing." And I was like, "You're on drugs. You're taking drugs.
You're on meth. Yeah,
and like yeah, you're on a small dose of meth, but like, and they would feel like, and like guys would be like, I want more of this. I'm like, no, you really don't. Like this is a little intense. We need to pull back.
That's funny. It's like the original Jack 3D where it's like,
yeah,
that probably shortened our lives by 10 years,
But it was
right,
worth
but
it.
everyone was out of their mind.
It was sick. It was definitely worth it.
I mean, it was, hey, it worked. I could have worked out and then, like you said, run like 8 miles and then come back and then like you were
do it again.
You could shoot me with a revolver and I would have been like, oh, I don't feel anything. It's like,
and that's the problem. I had someone ask me like, why I don't understand. Why do people do some of these things? I'm like, because they work. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Like, why do people cheat to try to get past it? I'm like, because they work. Like, if you do these things, you lift more weight, and then you might win the event. They work, so they try to get around it. So, having companies that we know you can actually take something and not have to worry about popping is so important. So, thanks. Because like we all know people that have popped for things that they're like, I wasn't taking anything. I said, I'm sure you weren't, but it's in your system, so you took it somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's usually they weren't doing it on purpose, but it's stuff wasn't really checked.
Well, that's one thing I try to do too is like my manufacturer, I use one, they're both GMP facilities, they third-party test. I'm moving to use BSEG, which is a bigger brand for it, because they actually have insurance too. So you have up to $1 million claim. So if you get popped, not only am I protected, I can actually pay you out and say, hey, look, whatever, it helps out. But also my manufacturer I'm kind of moving to doesn't even source it. They won't house it. So you have that extra element too. But again, it's still something that what I'll do, like, let's say you take my product, we hold 3 tubs of every batch for up to 3 years, right? Past expiration date.
Okay.
So let's say 2 years go down and you have a product and you pop, I will come out, because Gaspari was like this back in the day. Gaspari, I knew someone who took it and there was IGF-1 and there was all kinds of shit in there. And he emailed them and they were like, we're not going to let you test our product. We don't like, why would we, basically go after yourself? And I try to, because I'm so big in powerlifting at this point, I would come out and I would test it because my reputation's on the line, but also because I strive to always be, transparent. And it's easy to say that when you don't have a pop test, but if it ever came up, that's where I think your character gets tested, where it's like, it's easy to say this stuff. It's like presidents, right? You can say all this stuff while you're running for office, but are you actually going to be, hold yourself to that standard later on? And, again, I think that we've come a long way and there's still products out there like testosterone and all these other ones that really shouldn't be. And it's our duty as owners not to just make money, but also to strive to, change things. And it's not just about getting legislation. It's about choosing not to use an ingredient so often that ingredient's not housed anymore because nobody wants to use it. Right. So, it's the little thing I can do to at least try to give back to the sport. And I love the sport. Powerlifting's amazing. It's so cool to go from football and baseball to powerlifting and find this, because in New Jersey, like Connecticut, probably no one was doing it in high school, right? This isn't Texas. So it's really cool at 25, after playing football outside of college and being like, all right, what am I going to do competitively, and finding this sport. So I owe it to the people that buy my product.
Nice. Well, I guess we could probably transition from that into
Whatever
rising
that
tides.
is.
That's my insulin pump making that sound, so I'll get that turned off.
Still transition.
I mean, you don't need to
So,
turn it off. Just
not off. I'm not gonna
it's
die.
no
I'll
problem.
be
You need to do
fine.
that. Like,
You're just angry at me for something stupid.
Like,
It's fine. We're fine.
but yeah,
Um,
as Ryan was saying, you're hosting the Rising Tides meet.
Yeah.
A couple of our lifters here are doing it. So yeah, what tell us about that?
So I want to tread carefully, obviously, because Ryan is the state chair. But I'm a big believer in the USAPL. Obviously there's things that I think need to be changed. But I'm the firm believer of, I'm a middle child, so I definitely don't shut up, and I definitely whine and complain. But I find that if I'm gonna complain, or if I'm gonna sit here and criticize, then I should try to run things the way I think, right? Instead of sitting here and saying this doesn't work, try it, right? Run a meet and do it your way. And if you screw up, you can turn around and say, okay, that never was going to work. And if it does work, now you have proof that thing will work, and it can be adopted or not. And I think that kind of the way Sheffield has done with SBD, this is my opportunity to pour money into a meet. This year's a $15,000 cash prize. It's local lifters only. And I like that, where it's like Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, PA. There's some deep, like, quality of lifters around here, and nobody thinks of that. Nobody thinks of Connecticut or New Jersey, but there's some really, really competitive people. And I went to a meet, OBC, Odyssey Barbell Club, last year. And what was cool was, while there were some 500 dots lifters, it was more like middle quality. It wasn't like top end, but it came down to the last deadlift. And I realized it's not necessarily the weight on the bar, 700 versus 660 versus 600, but the stakes, right? I'd rather see someone pull 600 for the win versus Austin Perkins coming out and beating everybody. And it's like the live stream spikes when he's on, and then it's like, okay, nobody cares anymore. So it's also cool to be able to partner with a good, meet director. And I'm not a meet director. I'll never be a meet director. I realize just how difficult it is, but I can pour into the vendor side. So like for us, for the vendor package, I have 3 artists that I use for my designs. So the top package, you will get a rebrand or a design that will print on a shirt for you. So when you go to the meet, we'll print it for you. You pay for the cost. You go to that meet, now there's tangible value. Now there's something that you leave, people buy your thing. You can take it home with you. You can use my artist for further stuff. Now, is that going to work for going forward? I don't know. But what will be cool is 2-3 years from now, somebody else takes that and runs with it, and someone else takes it and runs with it. I can promise we'll have raw Nationals quality live stream, all that stuff. I love Gino, but it will not be his playlist. We'll have a curated playlist. And we'll just try to do it, because I think the unfortunate truth of powerlifting is that you have this very young group of people that are populating it, but the people at the top are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they know logistically how to run meets, but there's some ideas that you should take from these kids, right? Or these teens, or people my age, or even Ryan, your age, or, and I think that's important just to listen to everybody. And if one thing can come out of Rising Tide and be used nationally or wherever, it's worth it, right? It's just cool to be able to do it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I had earlier today. I've got 2 interns right now working with me at the gym. One's like 24, 25, the other one's like 20, 21. And I said to him, like, what would you do if you were running a meet at my place, or if you're running the gym itself? What would you do differently? What would you try? And they looked at me like I was out of my fucking mind. And I'm like, I'm 20 years older than you. You're going to have different thoughts than I do. And I was like, I'm not saying your thoughts are right. I've been doing this for a long time. But like, if you tell me something that's stupid, I'll tell you why it's stupid. I'm not going to be like, this is like, but maybe you're going to say something and be like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And I'm like, at the worst, you're thinking about it. Get thinking about it. Try stuff. I like, I like that you said, you'd be nice since I'm the state chair. But like, I still think we should be striving to make things better.
Yeah.
Like, I know off air I have complained. I think I've complained on the air once about this, where like over the last year, I think I've spent several thousand on cameras, microphones, laptops, cables to run a better live stream. The first 4 or 5 live streams we did, we took an iPad, put it up near the meet, hit Facebook Live, and I got shut down in 40 seconds because of the music and everything. And it was terrible.
Yep.
And now we're like producing these. I don't think we're doing a great job because I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm learning with it. And like our state championship meet last year, we had over 1,000 views on YouTube of something that I was like, I didn't think anyone was going to watch. And we got 1,000 views for a local meet.
Yep.
Like, that's cool.
Yep.
And then you said, like, with the competition, like we were talking about, we're going to do one later about our state championship meet this year. I put a dots qualifier on, which is, some people have gone back and forth on it. Our men's dots is 365, or women's is 315. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's not high enough. I'm like, it's a local meet, remember? And for us, that took 50% of Connecticut and kicked them out. Only the top 50% are in Connecticut can make this meet now. I said my goal next year is to get it to the top 40%, the top 30%, the top 20, to make it to a point where it's a true state championship meet. I said, but because of it, we have the weirdest one I've seen. We have 11 100-kilo guys that are all going to be competing. All of them are going to dots between like 400 and 475. About 7 of them before the QT change, we're going to be shooting for the QT. Now we'll see what happens there. But it's going to be fun because they said if any of them miss a squat or a deadlift, they could go from first to fifth.
Wow.
So there's going to be like literally like at the end of that meet, there might be 5 guys pulling for the win. Okay. And I'm hoping Gino's going nuts, being like, this is for the win. This is for the win. This is for the win. I hope he loses his mind. And that's going to be way more fun to watch than like what you said, like if one of the guys just wins by 40 kilos.
Yep.
So
I think that's also why you are good. I know you as a quality meet director, having only been to one of your meets. I told you when I saw you, I know that during COVID it was tough with having vendors and spectators, but I don't think it's a large ask. Obviously, it's hard. It's not easy being a meet director, but also, and it's a thankless job. It's not like you're making millions of dollars doing this. You do it because you own a gym and you like doing it. But I think there are people that I've met that are so rigid and they don't want to try new things. And there's, even meet directors that are good at it that won't change. They do the same thing. And just asking people around you what you can do better, even if you disagree with them, you'll come up with ideas like that. That's a cool idea where it slowly gets more and more competitive every year, and it forces people to get better, improve. You might even pull athletes that are in other sports that are very good from that sport into powerlifting. So, I think that people, unfortunately, in this sport, especially, people are very, they expect answers like this when that just doesn't happen. It takes years. Like, that's one thing I'm learning is like when I was just a competitor, right? I could bitch and moan about things and then I leave. I'm not there watching everyone take it down and rebuild it. And I think what's important is everyone should be, if you're going to talk, it's the same as like political. You see people complain on Twitter, but they don't do anything. They don't vote. Same with this. If you're going to do it, spot and load, be a sponsor, get people involved somehow, do one thing. Otherwise, why should anybody listen to your opinion, right? Because otherwise you're just complaining. And it's just really cool that in New Jersey, above us, we have Connecticut. You're doing a great job. We have PA, New York, New Jersey. We have a nice, like 4 or 5, even Massachusetts. We have 4 or 5 great states around us. And, hopefully it just helps everyone get better. And, like Rising Tide next year, we'll pull more out of that area, right? It won't be New Jersey only for men. It'll be New Jersey, Connecticut, PA, New York. And then maybe we open one day for national lifters as well. But, it's just really cool. People always ask me how I built 110, and obviously some of it's my ideas. I'll take credit for it, but a lot of it's just listening to my customers, just going to meets, setting up and saying, what can I do better? What would you like? What can I, this and that. And I think with some, what was that?
Sorry, that was my dog yelling at you.
Oh,
wow.
Dog speak English?
Nah, he's okay.
But it's, I don't know. I think that we're in a good spot with powerlifting. And it's just only going to grow. I mean, I feel like registration, the amount of members is at a sky high, and it's only going to get better. So.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to registration, like I think like my goal in 2023 for Connecticut was to get Connecticut to 400 lifters at the end of the year, and we hit 500.
Wow.
So like we crushed the goal, and now I'm like, oh my God, what do I shoot for this year? So now I have no idea what to shoot for, because like to go 100 over, I was like, oh, that's amazing. And I said, like, and someone said to me the other day, because like by me setting this cap on states, like I'm going to lose a bunch of money, not lose money, but I'm going to make way less than I did last year.
Right.
Last year we had 112 lifters. This year we're going to probably cap somewhere around 80. But last year we had 17 people who had never competed before, and then did their first meet as a state championship meet.
That's awesome.
Now this year, it's like we'll run a couple rookie meets, but then this state championship is gonna be a state championship.
That's
So
really
like
cool.
that's gonna help. And I think like and I was one of the things I liked with the Rising Tides idea was like it's a obviously you guys set the QTs pretty high for it, like who you're gonna invite, but they're not the top. You know, you weren't inviting people with 585 dots. So like
go on. I'm sorry.
it makes it competitive because, like you said, like if you invited a couple of these people that are way up there, they'd walk in, they'd win the money, they'd walk away without even trying.
Like an
Yeah.
exhibition.
It pissed people off.
Oh, I'm sure. But like but there's other events for them too.
I mean, I think it's cool. I think most primetime meets should have a dots cap on it, not for minimum, but maximum too. I think you can curate, right? Because I did get a lot of people that are like, oh, I deserve to be in it. I'm like, no offense, but it's for the betterment of the viewership. And, you know, and it's to make it compelling, not so you win $10,000, right? Like I don't, you know, and eventually you can open it. But even that, when you open it to everybody, like you said, you get one guy at 60 dots ahead of everybody. And it's like, I think what I wanted, because like Frank Allen being from New Jersey, what would be really cool is if Frank Allen comes in as a super heavyweight and puts up the heaviest total in the USAPL in 2024 at Rising Tide. Now, obviously he's going to do Raw National as well, but that's just really cool, right? That kind of stuff is really cool. And it's not just about one guy coming in. And that, unfortunately, a lot of those primetime meets, you know, but again, the primetime meets started and then it evolved. And now I get lucky that I get to start it now. And then 5 years from now, somebody else will pick it up. Maybe it'll still be us. Someone else will pick it up and grow it. And it's like, it's just really cool to it's cool to have an idea and think, okay, let's try it. And then people positively like that, where it's like positive feedback for it, you know? And we're not going to, I can't promise, we're going to screw up a lot of things, I'm sure. But it's cool to be able to actually have a chance to have a voice and do this. So, you know, we'll see where it goes.
With well, I'm gonna pull in some questions, like I said, like with setting like the numbers to go more aggressive, I guess. What do you think about the new QTs for USAPL Raw Nets?
So
go for it. I've talked about this constantly for like 3 days straight. So like I'm willing to hear other people because it's just been I woke up the other morning and I had 150 text messages and I was like, I don't have time for this shit. I was like, I'm not doing this right now.
I'm curious what you think, and I'm curious what Brian thinks as well. I mean, personally, for me, I'm an 82.5. I'm an open, obviously. If I went 9 for 9 in my meet in March, I would have qualified for Raw Nationals, and I still wouldn't have gone because I think that, unfortunately, we live in a world where people would rather the participation trophy and come in last than to actually earn it. And I think that regionals is relatively new back, but I think regionals is really the meet for someone like me, right? I go to this meet, I total 680, 690, okay? And then I have July, and I could medal. I could medal. I could come in third. I could come in fourth. It's more fun that way. Yeah, I want to go to nationals one day, and I think that maybe they were a little reactionary, where maybe every year change of totals, not 80. It was like 12% increase. But also, like, you're as an athlete, someone who came from football and baseball, you earn that spot. Like, it's not fair. But guess what? It's not like they're saying Kevin Papa sucks to be you. We don't want you there. It's a if you're not like unfortunately, I don't want to be. I hope nobody's listening to this that talks to me. But I had a number of people that I heard that were like, I've always wanted to go up against the best, and I'm like, but you're not the best. You like, you know what I mean? Like, you want to go up to get great. I want to be a billionaire, but every time I check my bank account, there's not $1 billion in there. So it's a weird thing that I'm not saying. I mean, you can say it's unfair, you can say it's aggressive, but it's a good thing for the sport because you're still going to have 1,000 lifters at Raw Nationals, and now regionals being after is just that much better. You can qualify for next year. And actually, at first I didn't like it, but it makes more sense now. Regionals being after now, because like right now, this year, I hate the idea that you can qualify at regionals, get 7.5 kilos over the total, and then you have three weeks to go to before Raw Nationals. What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything special. Now you qualify at regionals and have 9 months to turn around. So it's like, for all the dumb ideas that are happening, this is actually a good idea, I think. I think it was a good idea to change it, right? Brian, I'm curious what you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for anyone to say something's unfair is wild. It just happened. Like, it doesn't, they didn't consult you, but it's okay. I think you're right in the fact that it is a very sudden change. And I think, maybe I think the lack of communication is what people were so upset about. But the regionals and even like something like the American Open used to happen. Like there was no mid-level meets. It was just like everybody and like nationals. So I think it's a little overdue to not have events like Rising Tide or events like regionals where there's somewhere to go.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense that like there's this entire crop of people and like all we had was like what should have been like an unattainable thing for a lot of people, but like there should be something to work towards. So I think it was aggressive, but I think down the line, things will fall into place, hopefully.
I mean, 2025 is
Yeah.
gonna be a big year, right? You got president. If Larry doesn't win, and I don't think I mean, I think there's a lot of people that want him out. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think 2025 is a big year. And I think that I absolutely agree with you. You hit the nail on the head that I think there should be more communication. I think they do lack communication to some degree. I wish we had a president that could, every time they make some of these things, instead of us finding out through comments on USAPL's page, it'd be nice if we like had someone sit down in front of a camera with an iPhone and just say, "Hey, this is why we're doing this and this." But I think it's an improvement. I think it's necessary. Otherwise, everyone gets in, and it's like, what is it just kind of loses its value, right?
The thing that I was like I said, I talked to a ton of people afterwards. I had so many questions. Personally, what I was happy about was like my team. I have 4 or 5 people that are all within a very small amount of like they're going to get it probably in their next meet. Um, that all of them were like, yeah, we just need to get stronger. And I was like, that's the response you should have. The problem is there was a lot of like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, no, if you answered that way, you probably weren't good enough in the first place.
Yep.
You probably came in 38th place. I'm one of the first ones. I was on the Raw committee years ago before we disbanded, and I had said I wanted it to be like one flight per weight class. That was it. And everyone was like, "You're out of your goddamn mind." I said, honestly, that's still a really big meet. If you do 15 people per weight class, open, junior, masters, sub, like you're still talking. It came out to be like 980 people.
Yeah,
It's still a big meet.
right.
And I said, like, now I would have done like in a perfect world, I would have been like, hey, number one, you're invited. Number two, just work your way down the list until you had 15.
Yep.
That could be a lot more work. I get it. And like, and if 9 of them say no, then you get down to 24, and now you're watering it down again. So I get the idea. We had to pick a number somewhere. I would have gone a little less aggressive this year. I think I would have gone top 20 at nationals instead of top 20 over the course of the year. It would have dropped the QTs 4 or 5% for most of those and what they are right now, the new ones.
Okay.
But it still would have raised them a lot. But then stay that process of like, okay, we're going to add 2.5 or 5 every year for every weight class until we get to a point where it's like, oh, maybe we're having a little bit of a negative thing here. We're losing people because we don't have enough, not enough people get the QT. It is a good thing though. It's gonna, like I said, it's now it matters. Like you have to, like the fact that a lot of people did their second meet at nationals and didn't know a lot of basic rules. This is going to help reduce that because you have to be good. And not many people are going to hit that total on their first meet.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing.
I love what you just said, actually, though. I think the one thing they could have done is they could have opened it like they had it and just do 2 weeks. The top pro lifters, you have 2 weeks to decide to go to run it. Hey, and then it's 500 to 450, and then it's 450. Okay, we still have some spots left. Sprinkle in a couple more people. But you know what? Again, I think this is still a vast improvement for what they did. So,
Right.
And as Brian said, like it hasn't even happened yet. Like let it happen first. Like let's get through this
Right.
year, then criticize it. Like you're criticizing it before you even get to nationals. It could be an amazing meet. Just let it happen first, right? That's the thing I also can't stand is it's easy to criticize things that just to get for the sake of criticizing it, right? Like it's not easy. No, not everyone's gonna win. Not everyone's gonna be happy. Even with Rising Tide, one of the biggest lessons. Obviously, I'm not a meet director, but I had so many people. We only have 60 lifters this first year. I used to live in New Jersey. Oh, I went to school in New Jersey. Oh, my uncle lives in New Jersey. Oh, I like, it's like, no, and like I had one kid that's a really competitive lifter that his home gym is Iron Revolution. He did a meet that was like a 457 dots, and then is in USAPL, and then he did a WRPF meet because a couple guys in his gym were untested, and he's tested, and he went in and he put like 5-10 dots up. And he's like, why don't I get an invite? And I'm like, dude, you didn't do it USAPL. If I let you in, I'm basically making it a set. And that's the one thing John was very good for, where he's like, you make one exception, you're a hypocrite, right? And it's hard. And I see kind of where the national office is because there's always going to be people that are complaining. And those are always going to be the vocal people. The people that don't get in, or the people that whatever, those are always gonna be people that talk, and there's always gonna be negativity, like every social media post. But you can't win. You can't win, and not everyone's gonna win, right? So it's. I think it's the fairest thing they could have done, and we'll see what happens with it, I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, we have to do it first. Because what if it goes off and it's the best nationals we've had? Then people are gonna be like, oh man, it was really good. And I said, I've been going to nationals now for a long time, and there's been ups and downs. And I said, like the Memphis last year, the warm up room was probably the best warm up room we've ever had. Tons of space. There was bathrooms near us, which was nice. It was fairly easy to get to. There was a lot of the great things about it, but also like I don't know, I wasn't super pumped about Memphis, so like that changes things. So all of them had good things, and like as long as everyone's learning, we kind of keep pulling things forward. I think that's good. I mean, like I saw your post earlier today about like why isn't there anything on the East Coast? And there hasn't been anything since Orlando back in 2017, 2018, I think. And that's, I mean, the Orlando meet director left, so see you later.
Robert Keller.
Yeah. But like, but you're right. Like the part of the big problem on the East Coast is the money. Like I mean, everyone would love to run a meet in either New York City or Boston, but I don't know, you'd have to do it in
I
a
know
warehouse.
it's not easy as saying this, but the thing I also think, and someone raised a good point talking about this, and I did touch it on in my story, is that you do it in Utah, right? How you do it in Vegas? How many people live in a 2-hour radius that are going to drive that are USAPL members? Not many, right? I agree with you that in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, whatever, it'd be expensive. But you'd also have, because like, let's be honest, Vegas, ghost town. Even the prime time, there's like people.
Right.
And as a vendor, I'm paying how much money to be there. There's no one there, right? It's only people traveling there. You do it in Connecticut, you do it in New York or PA. Yeah, it's more expensive, but you recoup that cost because you have within a 4-hour. Look at the Arnold. It's in Ohio. How many people drive out there, right? You have so many people driving out to it. My goal next year for Rising Tide. Right now, like, everyone does Expo Center. I go to a lot of concerts, and even in New York City, you have places that they'll rent out a warehouse. It's concrete. They'll bring their own lighting in. It's cheaper than Expo Center, and you have unlimited seating. I would rather do something like that because, yeah, it's not an Expo Center. There isn't a hotel attached to it, but you could have 1,000 seats.
Right.
You could make, and again, I could be wrong, and you're gambling with a lot of money this way. But I think it would be so cool. I'm biased being East Coast, but even Texas, do one in Texas again. It's always West Coast, and I don't know why. I don't want to make up, I don't want to say it's because Alaska's their home base or whatever, but I mean, and I don't mind Utah, but man, instead of freaking Vegas, do it somewhere, because that had to cost you a lot of money doing it at a casino. Do it in Texas. Do it somewhere it's easily accessible. Even Louisiana is hard to get to. Some of the places they do it, it's just like, and again, I don't want to I'm being a hypocrite by criticizing now, and I'm not in charge of those committees. I'm sure there's thousands of dollars. That's the reason why it happens. But I would kill for an East Coast, Carolina or something. Because even the Atlanta one for CNATs, I've heard it's in a terrible area. I grew up in New York City, like 10 minutes away from New York City. Memphis, I walked. I didn't get an Uber. That was the first time in my life I had bums heckling me and following me, and I was like, "This is crazy." Because I'm a guy. Like there were girls getting pickpocketed, and it's like. There's a fine line where it's more expensive, obviously, to do it in a more affluent area, but it's like you got to figure something out because you got to make it more accessible in some way. And I think this is the hardest part of the parallel thing, like we were talking about vendors, where it's like, how do you do it? There's no answer, right? There's not enough money. You're not tuning into ESPN. They don't have a TV contract like the NFL. How do you do it? And I think we're in like the puberty awkward stage where it's going to grow, but how? I don't have an answer for it. And
that's like, I mean, Brian, you've been to a lot of the nationals with me, and I think if we're thinking spectator wise, I think probably one of the bigger ones was Atlanta.
Yeah.
Now part of that was John Hack, Jesse Norris. That was Ray's first 1,000 on record.
That was the first prime time too.
That was the first prime time. That was 2016.
16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh Rohr ran that one. That one was like, I mean, Atlanta's super easy to get to, so that worked out really well. That place was packed, and there was a lot of vendors at that one.
And a lot of platforms too.
There was a lot. I remember like I have a video. I joked about this the other day, actually. Like everyone talks about like seeing Ray's 1,000-pound squat. I said, no, you didn't. I was like, I have a video of Ray's back walking out to the platform because I was in the back room with them. and
That's
Ray
so
walked out, and the place went nuts. And I've got the video, like the place went nuts, and it was packed. And like that's cool. And you're right, like this year, like Memphis wasn't packed. I thought the venue was great. I thought the warm-up room I said was the best warm-up room we've ever had, but it didn't have the same feel when people were lifting. And part of that I think was the place was almost too big. That room was huge.
It's like Vegas. That was a massive, massive hall. Like you had to walk, like it was like a half a mile from one wall to the other, and it's like
right,
and filling it, right? Like so. I don't know.
So there's some like, and I hopefully, you know, like you said, that's things that we can learn on that level. Hopefully it just kind of keeps going. I mean, I heard Salt Lake City's great, but I don't know. I also don't really care to go to Salt Lake City. So whatever. You know, like I'll go because I'm going to go, but like not because I'm like pumped to go to Salt Lake.
Well, I would love to see stats on what, like, I have to imagine Midwest, like Ohio to the East Coast, besides Texas, has to be a majority of the, like, West Coast is USPA, I think. I don't think it's really USAPL. East Coast has to be the most densely populated in terms of USAPL. So again, I get where everyone's coming from where it's more expensive. But you know what? Instead of 30,000, video, walls, why don't we do, extra money for the venue or something?
Yeah.
Right? But
I can get you those numbers later.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we had talked.
Yeah.
We had talked about that like one last podcast is like, how do you make it so people actually want to go to the meets? We were discussing like whether there actually are fans of powerlifting, and I don't think there fucking are because it's just powerlifting. But like, so what do you were right before saying like all these ideas they need to come from people that would actually come and attend the meets. Why, I'm not going to fly to Utah to watch a powerlifting meet unless I have someone going.
Yep.
What do we have to do and what has to happen for that to be a thing where it's like we just know people are going to show up? I don't know.
I think and this is one of the things I said before. Is like I think first forums we pull back a little bit from there. Like, how do we make local meets better first? Because I still think I agree with USAPL. We are a grassroots organization. Like even if there's 1,200 people at nationals, there's 35,000 members. They're not at nationals.
Yep.
They're still at the local level. I said Connecticut last year we ran 10 meets. We had roughly 600 people sign up, and we had 488 compete.
Wow.
Dude. Yeah, so I mean, like we had 82% of the people that registered actually showed up, which I'd like to get a little bit higher. But like for a small state to have that many numbers, I was pumped with that.
Yeah.
And like so then, like I said, that's where I'm constantly being like, okay, what are you guys doing? Like I'm talking with like Eric Lapointe, Eric Cordero, fairly regularly, John DeLessio. Like, what are you guys doing differently? And I'll be honest, there's some things I don't like. Like you said, the video walls. I don't like video walls. I'm not doing that. I don't like smoke machines. I'm not doing that. But like, I'm willing to try other stuff. Like John uses a very different registration setup. I actually talked to John for like an hour at Nationals about the setup. And my next big change will be switching over to his registration setup because it just seems to work so much cleaner than what I've been doing now. But like like I said, if we can learn something from each other, and I don't know if there's enough talking about from the meet director's perspective between each other, because like you said, we kind of know what we're doing, so we just kind of keep doing it. But like from an outsider's perspective, like you said, like you're not a meet director, you're not going to run one. What would you want to do like at a local meet that you think would make local meets better?
I mean, that's where it's funny you say it because like I think again, like you said, most of the meet directors, most of the state chairs have been doing it for so long. They have a lot of the good ideas, right? I think the rising tide, I think stuff like that, like if you can get not a cash prize, but you can get it where you have, what's big right now? Content creation is what's driving it, right? I had to convince John. John would never let media. He'd never let anybody. I said, John, I get you don't want 55 people back there, but like for Rising Tide, we'll have one videographer that's just in the back, right? You get Steve Novi for Lorenzo's third deadlift, hyping him up. You get someone that's doubting themselves. Like you got to find a way to tell that story a little bit better. And I think that's part of it. I think that, again, it's hard because you have to get vendors, you have to find ways to make money. But I think, again, for us, you bring a company like Ivanka's in, right? And I say, hey, for $1,000, you can use a videographer. Whoever's wearing Ivanka's shoes, he'll film them walking up, pulling third deadlift, whatever. There's ways to do it. But again, the hardest part with powerlifting is that people don't. One of the funniest things is when I see somebody who's a first-time meet director, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna make $50,000 on this." I'm like, "Oh, you're not. You're not making anything. You're gonna be able to maybe buy a combo rack at the end of it if you do get really lucky." And I think that's the problem. The thing I
maybe an Ohio power bar
is that the people that are part of it, like you guys, you do it because you love the sport. Eric Cordero, he loves the sport. Eric LaPointe, John, they love the sport. It's not, and like Brian said, there's nobody that's necessarily a fan of powerlifting, right? Is someone going to get in their car, drive 4 hours just to watch powerlifting? I don't know. I don't think so. So you have to find a way to make it interesting in some way. Even the live streams. I have people that will say like, oh, like for $500, you can be on a live stream. I'm like, your live stream average is like 40 viewers. Why? Like,
Right.
where is the value there, right? And I don't fault people for trying, but it's like I said, I can't help but think it's like powerlifting is in this weird like teenage years where we don't know where it's going to go, right? It was niche and that was cool. It could say niche, and now it's kind of touching to the brand, you know, to the broad populations a little bit. Every so often people see it. It's kind of like household, but you know, it's big on TikTok, all that stuff. It's blowing up in social media, whether that's a good or bad thing. How do we turn it into monetizing it, right? Because CrossFit did it, you know, these other sports did it. How do you do it? And I think that will come over the next few years. And we're either going to see something stay the way it is, or we might 5 years, 10 years from now, see something blow up. You know, who knows? You know, I certainly don't have all the answers. So I
mean, like you said, vendors wise, like I talked to you about this. I said, like, my thing with vendors is like I didn't do them for years. COVID really like shot that down. And then I'm like, I talked to everyone, everyone's like, you gotta do this. Like, I can't believe you're not doing vendors. And I was like, okay, but I looked at what people were charging for vendors and I was like, you're out of your damn mind.
Yep.
Because like that means like I know like if I charge you 500 to come up to my meet, to a local meet that let's say has 60 lifters, you got to sell a lot of shit to make it worth your drive up 10-hour day with me, drive home. It's like you got to sell a ton. So how can we make it where it's beneficial to you, me, and the lifter?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that every person's thinking about that.
So
right? They're thinking about like, how is it beneficial to me?
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I want to make more money. I do. But like one of the ways I make more money is making a whole bunch of people happy and enjoying what they're doing, that they'll come back and do more.
You might be the most reasonable meet director I've ever dealt with, actually, because most, and I again, the idea that you had was genius, where you're like, hey, $1 per spectator or $1 per athlete, because that way you're tying it to, hey, I have a 120 lifter 2-day meet. Okay, I'll pay more for that, right? I have a small 20. So it's like, that is, you actually thought that through. I've never heard that before. And again, I love that. I have people coming to me with a 30 lifter meet. They're like, hey, $800. I'm like, on what planet, $800? Where?
Right.
So I have to make $4,000 at your meet. Who am I selling a car? Like, where am I making that money? And it's just, it's almost like, I used to think it was like intentional, but I just don't think people realize the value can be there, but you have to figure out a way to make it. Because even nationals, you have like 5 vendors. You could make that have 50 vendors. You could really go all out. And it's like, it's especially for a local meet director, you have to know your local businesses, right? When I did Rise and Tide last year in Texas, I severely overestimated or underestimated how difficult it would be to get vendors. I think I had like 2, and I got lucky because A7 was one. It's so hard. It's not easy to do it. You know, people want to say it's easy. It's not easy, and that's the hard part, is getting local businesses to tie themselves to it. And again, I speak highly of you. You've done a good job with that. Again, your ideas were creative. It was fair to me. It was fair to, you know, everything else. And you have a packed house, you know. Hopefully no one gets towed. So, you know, it's
but like you said, it's gotta be beneficial to everybody. And like, you know, in Yuli and Mateo come up from White Toe to most of our meets too. And like they have said, part of that's because like I've been friends with these guys for a while. They used to come to all of our meets anyway. They started their company. They started coming up. A bunch of my team wears the shoes. I wear the shoes. I tell everyone about the shoes, and they've said they've done better at our meets with way less people than they've done at much bigger meets. But it's beneficial to them. But I said to someone earlier today, like as a local vendor, it's got to be beneficial to you too. Because if you give me $1,000 to give out to the winners and you don't get anything back, what's the point? Like I said, I've got some local restaurants that I know, and like maybe they would give me something, but after 1 or 2 meets where they're like, "What's my return?" They're not going to keep doing it. So it's like, and that's why I keep saying, like, how do we benefit everybody, not just the meet director or the lifter? I think it's got to be because like I said, if you're not willing, if you have to sell that much gear, which you know you're like at a local meet, you're probably not going to, then you're not going to come. Which means that now I can't tell people you're coming, you know. But if I can say to the meet, be like, hey guys, on Saturday, guess what? Like, you know, at the meet, we've got 110 and White Toe coming in. Go over and see them. They're going to have stuff. That helps. It benefits like the spectators too, because a lot of the spectators, like Brian said, are going to be powerlifters. The lifters obviously, but like if I can't even get you to come out because I'm charging $800 to come up to a local meet, then like that doesn't help. It doesn't make the lifters more excited. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying this year. I'm going to try a couple extra things, like what we give out to the lifters, to make sure everyone gets something and not just the winner. Because I think that's obviously a lot of people get that. But how can we make everyone happier and get them back? And like you said, like it's tough because like we're growing so fast that there's times where I'm like, what am I doing? And I mean, in the live stream stuff, we've come so far in like a year, and I still feel like I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And we make mistakes pretty much every meet, but it's come a long way. And now it's like we're trying to get even better. Now we're trying to add multiple cameras and all this, and it's just like it's happening so fast that it's tough to keep up with everything.
Right.
Brian and I were like, we did a couple podcasts ago. I said to him, like, I was going to get a red carpet for the meets, and he's like, "You're out of your mind, right? You're not." He's mad at me. I'm fucking serious. Like it's in my Amazon cart. I've got velvet ropes.
Oh my God. It's like the American Pro.
Yeah, like, well, here's
That
the thing. Like, there's a part of me that's like, that's fucking stupid. I don't want to do this. There's another part of me that thinks, you know what? The average person's never going to be on a red carpet. If they can walk up on a red carpet and go lift, they'd be pumped.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And that red carpet is going to cost me like $22.
Yeah, but if I'm walking out on a red carpet to squat 225 pounds, it's I'm kidding. Well, I'm not kidding, but I see
your PR.
Again, like I think that that's what the sport needs more of, is people that think, okay, what do people that go to let me be realistic, but also like, what can I do? What would people want, right? Some of these people will spend money on stuff that nobody asked for, right? You have a specific meet director in Virginia that will spend money on stuff and then go say, oh, it's my personal money. It's like, okay, but nobody asked for it, right? And I'm not saying, again, like, it's a weird thing because you are putting your time and effort in, and it should be like for Rising Tide, I'll play a lot of my music that I think is good, kind of like how Gino does it, right? You want to do the things that you like, but it's also finding a way to package it so that other people like it. And I think because powerlifting is older, middle, and younger, it's hard to hit everything. Everyone, if you polled everyone at the end of a meet, they all want different things. And it's tough. That's the one thing I have a lot of respect for, is being a meet director or just being involved in meets at all, because it's a thankless job. Very rarely does everyone have. Someone's always bitching.
So the meet that you were at for the last one at our place, just because of the way people were moving around. So for last deadlifts, I took over the table, and I'm running the table. And I looked at Gino. I said, "Hey man, I'm taking over the playlist." And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, I'm taking it over. And I immediately put on just some pretty aggressive heavy metal. Put on Meshuggah, put on Bleed, and I heard someone behind me go, "Finally!" And I just laughed because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with Gino's list, but just that person wanted metal,
right?
And like by me putting on metal, they were like, yes. And then I played like 25 different songs in like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But like, I just kept skipping around. Like every new person that came up, I was like, here we go, new song. But you're right. I try to send out a form after the meet. I haven't done the last one yet. I can do that one of like, hey, because I try to give them a little bit of time to think about the meet. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you like to see differently? And you're right, is like I get very different responses, and it can almost be broken down into like age groups.
Right.
Like they want certain things. Yep. And some things I can usually respond and be like, you know what? That's easy. Got it. Other things I'm like, impossible. Can't do that. In my place, because it's hot in the summer, everyone wants air conditioning. Well, not going to do that. That's $25,000. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
But like about a year ago, people started asking, like, can we get more like videographers or photographers in? I can sure try. The worst is I'm going to say no, but I can try. And we've had one at almost every meet, like the last 6 or 7 meets we've had. Is someone's been there, and it's been great. It's worked out well.
Yep.
This last meet we did assigned platforms for warm-ups. I tried it, didn't know how it would go. So like based on your opening attempts, I said, you're on this platform for warm-ups. And a couple people are like, yo, I love that.
Yep.
Because then they didn't have to think about where they were going.
Yep.
And I wasn't sure how it would work. I was hoping it would work because it was my idea. I was like, oh, this will work. And people were like, that was awesome. I didn't have to worry about where to go. I just went to the platform and warmed up, and it was great. So that's what we're going to keep doing. But yeah, like I try to do every meet. I want to try to do something a little bit different, a little bit new, see what we can do, and just make them better.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately like you're doing the right thing where you are listening. And again, to go back to what we said earlier, you should listen to people, but also you know best. You're the one running the damn meet. So it's a weird thing where you want to take information, receive feedback from people, but at the same time, most of that feedback, you're going to be like, I can't do that, or that's stupid, or whatever. But the fact that you're even listening is, I think, still above most of the meat directors out there. And you'll see me more. I'll be at more of your meets. You got a guy, like, hey, just that one meet, it was great, So, I hate going through New York City into Connecticut, but it's worth it. It's worth it. They're good meets, good people.
I feel like the drive has gotten worse, right? Like
anytime
a lot
I have
worse.
to go anytime I have to go over 95, it could be 3:00 in the morning and there's traffic. It could be like the most random time and there's 3-car pile up and I have to get around. It's crazy, but it's worth it. Like I said, it's worth it. And it's not, and for me, especially as a business, it's not just about making money. It's about partnering with good people. And hey, if we start selling 110 at your gym and it sells, great. That makes me want to be there even more because I know the community is supporting, right? And it's putting money into your pocket. And it's just a cool way. I this year especially, I've tried to not just sponsor meets, but find ways to actually, like, how can I partner with this person, right? How can we do different things, right? Does he have an open gym on Saturdays? Does he do this? Does he do that? Does he have a shelf, like you have a shelf or a case where you put products in? Let's try it. If it doesn't do anything, it doesn't do anything. But at least that way we both win something. So
I mean, I think that's a good way to end on my end. What do you got? You guys got anything?
I'm just saying, if you guys listening want to do a meet, can't do Rising Tides, got to qualify for that. But if you want to do another meet, Police Performance Training, no, we don't do that anymore. But with that in mind, Kevin, do you have any socials? Do you have anything you want to plug? This is your time. This is your stage.
I hate doing this stuff. I mean, I hate plugging them shamelessly, but we have a new product. We have a new flavor coming out that came out, passion fruit tea. That's really good. One thing I love about you guys asked me earlier about our products. One thing that's cool about the baseline pre-workout is that it's naturally derived. There's red beet powder for most of them, but we use oolong and green tea for the tea ones. So Arnold Palmer tastes like Arnold Palmer, right? The passion fruit tastes really accurate. So that's one. And always feel free to reach out to us. I run the email, I run the social media, and it's nice to always hear back from people. Again, kind of like what Ryan was saying, I'm always listening. There's always ways to get better. There's always ways to, things I can do better. Don't blow smoke up my ass. If you don't like something, tell me because I can try to fix it. Right. So I appreciate you guys for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Usually the podcast is like 3 minutes and then the conversation's already stale. So this is a lot of fun to be on and I look forward to coming back on again.
Cool, man.
Thanks for